3 years ago, I walked out of a Volkswagen showroom floor with this, my 2015 Volkswagen Golf GTI, and I've had a really good time with this car. But ever since that day, I've had one question lingering in the back of my head, and that question is what if? What if I had $15,000 more and I could buy one of these, a Golf R? Well, today I've come up with 5 good things about each car to help myself figure out if I actually made the right decision. And by the end of this video, I'm gonna come to an answer. Now, you would think that the Golf R's history started back in 2002 when the original Golf R32 came out. But I'm going to actually take us back to 1989, because in 1989, Volkswagen built 71 hand-built versions of a model they called the Golf Mark II G60 Limited. Now, this is a very interesting vehicle in Volkswagen's history, because what they did is they took the 16-valve engine out of a normal Golf GTI and they slapped a G60 supercharger on it to make 210 horsepower. Then they took the 4x4 system out of a VW Synchro van and slapped it in a Golf as well, and there you have the 71 model limited edition Golf G60 Limited. Pretty cool car, and while it's not technically a Golf R, I think it's pretty clear that that's the spiritual predecessor to the Golf R. In 2002, Volkswagen came out with the Mark IV Golf R32. Now, it's called the R32 because under the hood was a 3.2-liter narrow-angle VR6 V6 engine that made a little over 220 horsepower and a little over 230 pound-feet of torque. In that original R32, power was sent from the VR6 to all 4 wheels through only a manual transmission. Now, moving on to 2005, we get the Mark V Golf R32, and it's still called the R32 because it still has a 3.2-liter VR6 V6 engine. However, this time, the 4 wheels were powered by a dual-clutch transmission exclusively. In 2010, Volkswagen came out with the Mark VI Golf and the Mark VI Golf R, and it's no longer the Golf R32 because they ditched the VR6 in favor of a 2-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder. Fans of the Golf R rejoice because the Mark VI came with a 6-speed manual and 256 horsepower, which finally brings us to that one, the Mark 7 or the Mark 7.5 in this case, Golf R, which packs 292 horsepower and 280 pound-feet of torque and sends that power to all 4 wheels through, finally, your choice of a manual transmission or a dual clutch. This Golf R is the Mark 7.5, which is the mid-cycle facelift of the 7th generation Golf. Although I can assure you underneath, it's no different. It's the same chassis, same engine, all that good stuff as the regular old Mark 7. This one just has a different face. The number 5 reason that I should have bought a Golf R is all-wheel drive. This Mark 7.5 Golf R, like the rest of the Golf Rs in history, comes with 4-motion all-wheel drive, which makes it a really great vehicle, especially for the winters here in Colorado. It's a front-biased all-wheel drive system. So the Golf R will send its power to the front wheels first, and then it can send power backwards to the rear if it detects slip in the front. If you want to take it skiing, there's tons of room in the back. You can throw your skis or your snowboards back there and make it up to the mountains with no problem because of this 4-motion all-wheel drive system. The number 4 reason I should have bought a Golf R has to do with the tailpipes. And as you can see, there's 4 exhaust pipes back there. Now, what this means is that the Golf R actually makes a much cooler sound to me compared to the GTI, which only has 2 exhaust pipes. Plus, they pipe in a different sound through the speakers here in the car. Whether or not you like that is up to you, but I think for sure the Golf R sounds a lot cooler than the GTI. Here in the US, Volkswagen sells the Golf R in exactly 1 trim with 1 option, your choice of manual or DSG transmission. What that means, though, is that you get a ton of features as standard. You get leather seats, you get a digital cockpit, you get adaptive cruise control, you get an 8-inch touchscreen display. All this stuff comes included for basically 1 price. Now, that price is pretty high. This one, as option, is about $42,000. Quite a bit. You'd save $1,100 if you got the manual transmission. The number 2 cool thing about the Golf R, actually, you need to look at the Monroney to find out, and it's this really important little box right here that shows you where the final assembly point was. Because for the Golf R, that final assembly point is in Wolfsburg, Germany, not Mexico like the GTI. And the number one reason why you should buy a Golf R, well, it's right there. Now what's funny actually is that this engine block is exactly the same as the one in that GTI. However, Volkswagen have given this one a significantly larger turbo, plus some other little upgrades, so now it makes 292 horsepower and 280 pound-feet of torque. That power is sent to all four wheels through your choice of either a 7-speed dual-clutch transmission or a 6-speed manual. But I think the coolest thing about the Golf R is the performance increase you get over the regular old Golf. I mean, that's over 80 horsepower different, and you can feel it. The Golf R is great, but the GTI has its own positives, and I've come up with 5 of them, as I did with the Golf R. Now, the number 5 thing that's really cool about the GTI is the starting price, because it's a heck of a lot cheaper than that Golf R. Mine was a 2015 and it started at just under $25,000. Now that price has gone up a little bit as we've moved through the model years, and the new GTI starts at around $26,000. But that being said, that's almost 15 grand in savings between a base model GTI and a base model Golf R. The number 4 cool thing about the GTI has to do with this little hatch right here, and of course that's the gas hatch, because the GTI gets much better gas mileage than the all-wheel drive and much heavier Golf R. The Golf R in the city gets 22, on the highway it gets 29, and the combined rating is 25 mpg. But the Golf GTI gets 25 in the city, 33 on the highway for a combined rating of 28, 3 mpg better than the Golf R. As I just mentioned, the GTI gets a lot better gas mileage, and part of the big reason for that is that it's a lot lighter than the Golf R. See, the weight difference is about 300 pounds, which means the GTI weighs about 3,000 pounds and the Golf R weighs 3,300 pounds. Now what this means is that the driving dynamics are actually pretty different between the two cars. The GTI is maybe a bit less planted than the Golf R, but it's also a little more lively, a little more tossable, and to some a little bit more fun. The number 2 cool thing about the Golf GTI, I think, is the styling, because it's a little bit more youthful, a little bit more playful than the Golf R. It has this red stripe across the front, it has red brake calipers, it has plaid seats, for God's sakes. A golf ball is your shift knob if you get the manual transmission. The Golf R, on the other hand, well, it's just a bit more mature and a bit more subtle. The grille has this silver line through it instead of a red line. There's no plaid seats, it's black leather with silver stitching, not red stitching. The brakes are painted silver. It's a very clean look, and I think it looks very good, but I just think the GTI is a bit more fun. The number 1 cool thing about the Golf GTI has to be those 3 letters right there, GTI. It means Grand Touring Injected, and although that name doesn't really have much to do with anything anymore because all of them are fuel injected, it does show you that this brand has been around since the 1970s, and pretty much anyone talking about any hot hatch is going to compare it to the GTI because it's just the Mac Daddy, and for that reason I think it's just a little bit cooler than the Golf R. DSG or manual? It's a debate that Golf fans have been having pretty much since the dawn of time, or at least since that's been an option in these cars. And I think I've come up with a good answer, and I think the answer is different for both of these cars. You see, the GTI is really fun, it's really lightweight, and it's really engaging, and for that reason I think the 6-speed manual complements the GTI very well. However, on the Golf R, I think it's a different story. It's such a performance machine, it's so much faster, and it's so much more to handle that it's almost more difficult to drive it with the 6-speed manual. So in the Golf R's case, I think that the DSG is the better choice. Plus, the DSG in the Golf R is a 7-speed, whereas the DSG in the GTI is only a 6-speed. One other reason that I think the DSG is the better transmission here in the Golf R is that it's a lot faster 0 to 60. 2 years ago, Paul took a Mark 7 Golf R on our test track with a manual transmission and did a 0 to 60 in 6.76 seconds. So I'm going to do one in the DSG here and see how fast it goes. 0 to 60 at a mile above sea level, and this is the result. 5 seconds 0 to 60, which is well over a second and a half faster than the manual transmission car. Very impressive from the Golf R with the DSG. If I had $15,000 more when I bought my GTI, would I have walked out of that showroom with a Golf R? It's a really tough question. I have to say, after spending a couple days with the Golf R, I really, really like it. And of course, there's part of me that wishes I had one in my driveway. But at the end of the day, $42,000 is a lot of money. And when you can walk away with a GTI for just $25,000, well, I think that kind of speaks for itself. For the Fast Lane Car, I'm Mike Curtis. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please drop a comment down below and let me know what you thought of this video, and be sure to come back to TFLcar.com for more news, views, and real world Golf R versus Golf GTI reviews just like this one.